Hey everyone, this is the build guide for the Rascal. Let's just get to it. The first thing we're going to start with is just putting the little bits together with a grip. So you're going to take your mag catch, you're going to slide it in. You're going to put the notch, you're going to put your notch in at the bottom of the magazine first. So you kind of have this type of thing where it kind of leans in, and then once the notch is settled, you can just push it from the back of it and lock it into place. And then you're going to take your two very small M2x6 screws, and you're just going to screw them into place. And if you want to put the magazine in first, that way you kind of have something you can press against. That'll work too. So you can kind of have it all pre-locked in. Just get some more screws out of the way. You're going to take your locking larger nuts and you're going to slide them in to the magazine. Unlike the Scamp, with the Rascal, I've changed the thickness of the walls, so they should be able to stick in a little bit better, and you won't have to cut these out if you mess it up. These will just lock in and they'll be held in place by the walls. And then we're going to take our next little bit. We're just going to start putting pieces together that we can. Take your barrel just like the Scamp. Just going to slide it in. Give it a little push. Make sure you don't cut yourself. This might be a little sharp, but you know, just nice and careful. You don't want to cork yourself on the brass. Give it a little tug. Some twisting will help seat it a little bit better. And you want to make sure it goes past. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to get my phone light out so you can see inside. You want to be able to see inside. Past the turnaround, you want the brass to be past it, otherwise it'll restrict the airflow. But it should settle in pretty nicely and give you a nice, good, tight seal. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our longer rods, which are going to be the ones that connect the rest of the blaster from the grip. We're going to fit them into place. And if you don't have a drill, a pair of pliers will give you a good grip, and you can kind of just apply a little bit of pressure and they'll twist in. And they'll start to lock. You want to go maybe 1/4 of an inch past, but if you do have a drill, just close it down on top, give it a little spin, and you can adjust all these lengths later when you are putting the blaster together, because you want it to be you're going to want it to be just barely sticking out past the front of the blaster, so that you can put the last couple nuts on. But you know, try to get them pretty close to even with each other. Pretty good, just to have it, like, you know, in case you do get it right the first time, you want it to be nice and locked in. Now I'm going to take some your kits will have all these ready to go. You're going to take your little 20mm rods right here. Just fit them into the slots, and then your turnaround is going to fit right on top of this. And everything pressed together, and it should lock in nice and tight like that. So that's basically the back half of the grip, and we're just trying to make sure everything fits right now, because as we put together the floating plunger, you might want to take it off, but it shouldn't be too in your way, because you can always just apply pressure underneath. Floating plunger, and that is done by taking your smooth rod. You can see it has threads on either side and then smooth down the middle, and you're just going to fit all of your floating plunger parts onto it, and I like to do this with a drill. Just helps speed up the process. Inside of your floating plunger head, there is 2 holes. One has no indent and one has an indent. You're going to want to put the smooth rod through the hole that does have an indent. And if you are using a drill, just to help yourself and smooth this later on, spinning it pretty quick and just kind of opening up that hole, make sure there's no little burrs on the inside of it, or even taking it in reverse or forwards and pushing it against the thread to kind of open it up, helps a lot later down the line, because you're just opening it up. It's going to have an O-ring in there, which actually creates the seal, but this will just help let it glide more freely. And the same thing with this. This one's more open, so if you have any burrs on the inside, spinning it and just sliding it up and down will open it up nice and quick. And you're going to take some of your lubricant, just a small bit dab. This might even be too much. It's on my finger. I'm going to wipe it off back in the tub. And you're just going to put a little bit on the threaded rod. And then just kind of go up and down. And now you start to see this piece will start to move much more freely. This is the other way to do it. If you don't spin it, just kind of put it off an off angle, so instead of going straight down, kind of give it a little twist. Just try to knock those burrs off. There you go. And so the O-ring is on. Just like that. Or it's about to be on, sorry. You're going to take one of your little O-rings right here, and you're just going to slide it over the end. Ooh, it's very slippery. I need a rag to wipe my hands off. You're going to slide it over the end like that, fit it into that piece, and then you're going to line up the bottom hole of this one. The top one opens up to a hex nut, which is going to lock everything in. The bottom hole, which is the one that goes along the main length of it, is what the smooth rod is going to fit through. And then those two pieces will seat together just like that. Then you're going to take one of your hexes, and you might have to use, an Allen key or a screwdriver, something just to get it pushed into place. That one went in pretty smoothly. We're going to take our drill, because that's the tool I'm using to build this. Our 2.5 millimeter hex. And we're going to take the longest screw that's going to be in your kit, which is this guy. And we're going to put them in the front right here. Get them seated. And just kind of keep pressure on everything as you push it together. Oh, grab another one. So I totally pushed that piece out. If that happens or keeps happening, just back it out until you can't see the screw coming through the bottom of the hole right there. Take your hex, drop it back in, and this time maybe you could use the threaded rod that we're going to use at the top of the blaster, and that'll keep it in place. Just apply some pressure on it. You'll feel it bite, and now you can see, I'll get my light again. You can see how it's coming through, and it's through that lock nut. And now you have your floating plunger, and that should flow pretty smoothly across this. If you have some higher viscosity lubricant that helps smooth it up, it's always a good thing to have. But the kit comes with enough or the regular lube that I use, and that is perfect for movement. As you can see right here, it is pretty smooth all the way through. Sorry about that. And now we just take your big O-ring. Ooh, you don't shoot it across the room. Take your big O-ring, push this guy up to the top, and just pop him over the edge like that. And that is the basic internal mechanism for your floating plunger. Next, we're going to take our plunger tube. We're going to take some lubricant. I'm just going to coat the inside of it. Not super heavy of a coat, but just enough to, you know, get it nice and lubricated. Scrape off some of it with your fingers. Get it fully coated all the way around. I'm going to wipe off my hand really quick. I have no idea where my rag is. Alright, guess I'm using this. Alright, sorry about that. Take your plunger tube. It'll fit right into your turnaround just like that. Now take your floating plunger piece. With the excess lube that's in here, you can probably just take some of it out and wipe it around the edge of the O-ring. Just kind of give it a nice little pre-lube. You can always, you don't have to take it out of the plunger. If you want to grab more, you can, like so. I was just trying to keep the mess to a minimum, but you know what, we're just gonna go for it because it's more fun that way. That's the little rag I was using. Cool. Take your plunger, that'll slide right in. And make sure that seal is nice and good, especially for 3D printing it. You want it to be, like, let's see if I can get a good image of it. You want it to be mostly touching. It should move really easily. You can see there's little air gaps here and there. It's kind of hard to see with the light on it. But you can kind of see that there's little air gaps. As it moves, it'll tighten up. So when it's static and like pulled back, there should be little gaps. If it's too tight for you people who are 3D printing it, I would scale it down maybe 1 or 2%. Because usually it's about like a millimeter difference that you need. And just reprint that piece, and then it should work. But you know, everyone's printers are going to be slightly different. Thread the smooth rod through the turnaround. Alright, so now this piece goes all the way through and the floating plunger is locked into place right there. Take your 2 O-rings, the little ones. We're going to shove those into place. Just like that. Sorry, my hands are covered in lubricant. It is very slippery. And then you're going to take this little piece, which is your little turnaround nub, slide it in, give it a little push up, and just like that, it'll lock into place. Now you're going to take one of your shorter screws. At this point, I should probably just switch this, pull back in. So you're going to be, your set's going to come with 8mm screws and 12mm screws. You're going to take one of the 8s and use that to lock in this nub right there. You don't want to overthread it, just enough to keep it in place. And that's all you're trying to do. Now you can take your bars right here, and you're going to use the grub screws to lock these in place in the turnaround. These little guys right here. Oops. Looks like I knocked one off. Just like that, we're going to lock this into place. Now we can start putting together our slide. If you have a file, you can go over it. I do my best to clean it out, but using the trigger release bar, you can take off any burrs on the inside of this, which will help it slide more freely. It'll wear down over time if you don't do this. You know, if you decide you just want to put it together, it'll be a little stiff at first, but as it slides back and forth, it'll open itself up and it'll become nice and smooth again. You have your pusher, which is going to fit right in here. You're going to take your O-ring, I do not have it out currently. There it is. Oh, no, never mind. I lied. I do have it out. It's right here. You should pop that on. Nice and simple. A little tiny dab of lubricant, just like we did to the plunger head. That'll allow it to slide smoothly into the turnaround. Just do a little test, make sure it fits. Perfect. Now I can take this whole piece, slide it into the large slide. And just until you feel them grab each other, oh, sorry, we're using the 12mm screws for this part. And we're screwing them in just till you feel them grab. You don't want them to be over tightened. I'm going to take this, slide it on, make sure it pops into place properly. There you go. Everything's locked in nice and tight. And give it a few tugs out before you undo anything, just to make sure that it's aligned properly. You can see how it lines up evenly along like the length of the slide. So he's going to pop it in and out a few times just to get all the pieces working. A few little pushes. Oh, that's why. So my grip has a piece of plastic that's just kind of free floating out there. That's better. You can see if it's working from here, and just like that, just a little push, locks it into place, everything goes in like that. Your slide is pretty much lined up. Take this rod, you can give it a little tap on the table, don't go past the brass. I'm just trying to push it through the back of the blaster. Now you can take your drill, you can do this with two pairs of pliers if you want, but I think it's easier with a drill, just half open. You're going to take one of your small locking hexes. You're going to get it kind of close to the right size. I'm just going to use that to knock it on and hold it in place with your pliers. And you're going to want to, see, I put it on a little too far. You're going to want to put it on right about halfway. You don't want to go all the way down to the bottom of the threads, which is a mistake I made with the Scamp. And a lot of times it ended up getting over threaded and falling off, and that was kind of a mess. So this time I designed it so that you only go halfway to the threads, and that will allow you to not have to worry about over threading it. Also, don't rip the entire blaster apart when you push on it. And if you do accidentally pull it out, just grab the end of it with your drill bit like that, and just thread it back through. Now you can take this, back it down, take your end cap, line it up so that the indented square piece is facing down, and then the side with the angles is facing up. Just pop these two pieces together. Make sure there's no burrs on it like this, otherwise you'll be fighting it. Now we're going to take two more M12 screws. To take our drill, put it back together, and we're just going to lock this in place. one. Line up the other piece with the top hole. And two. And this piece is a thicker, more fortified piece than the one that's in the Scamp, just because we had issues with it early on, and if it wasn't printed at high enough density, it could sometimes fail. So I wanted to fix that. Now we're going to put together our trigger assembly, which is going to use the two more of the M12 screws. You're just going to attach your trigger to the bar, the curve facing towards the opposite end. And don't over tighten them, don't over tighten the first screw, just make sure it's a little loose, so that as you put it together you can line it up in the center of the bar. There should be a little bit of leeway between them. You can see here how much space it has to move, but just get it lined up in the center. And then tack down those screws. Just like that. Now we're going to slide this through your trigger guard. And this will slide over the barrel. Just like so. Now the top piece we're going to put together. Make sure this is cleaned out. If there's any burrs hanging out around here, just knock them down. If you have a file or a screwdriver or even this rod, just anything to pick them off. 3D printing likes to leave little doodads lying around. Take that. I'm going to take, just finish printing your PT spacer under. Right here. Just make sure it fits in. Like so. And then take this piece. Just checking to make sure everything fits before we try to bite it in. Take your two thin rods, or 20mm rods. Give them a little press into place. Don't drop your pieces all over the floor. I mean, you can. Doesn't matter. This blaster is built to last, but it makes building easier if you don't. Brace it against your hip or the table and just kind of push them together. Push that spacer in. Like so. We're just currently trying to make sure everything fits while adding in all the threaded rod or the thin rods. Pull off any burrs that are in the way, because they like to be a nuisance. This will face backwards like so. Like the clean spot will face towards the trigger, depending on your print orientation. The way I print it, the angles here and this hollow empty space will face like so, facing away from the trigger and into it. Cool. Now you're going to take your longer 2mm bars. So you have these short ones, and you're going to take these longer ones. These longer ones are going to fit in this upper spot right here. Again, just take a pair of pliers like last time and just give them a little shove down. You probably don't want to use your fingers because they're really pointy. Give them a little shove in. And that'll basically clean up the front end of the blaster. You can do this ahead of time, but it doesn't really matter when you do it. But we're going to put together our catch. So you're going to take your spring, you're going to slide it in like that. Just make sure it goes nice and freely. And then you're going to take the, I'm just going to clean this up because it's got a bit of burr. Ooh. It's got a bit of burrs hanging off of it. Doesn't take a lot. There's another one hanging out right there. You're going to take your plunger housing and floating plunger mouth. They're going to fit together just like so. And then another 12mm screw. Don't lose your piece in there. You're going to do both sides. Just all the while making sure that it's moving freely. There might be little burrs catching on it. But once it's in, you can see how it just, I can't really snap it. There's not enough space for me to snap it, but it moves nice and free. Then we are going to take our spring, which is lying around here somewhere. Our spring is going to slide right in. Then your catch system is going to sit on top, and you're going to press it down and make sure that it fits through the hole. And this is the one part of the build. Sorry, I'm going to make sure this is in camera. This is the one part of the build. Spring goes on, just pushes everything into place. That kind of requires a little bit of coordination. So now once it's in, grab this piece of the pair of pliers nice and tight. Take your last small locking nut. Might have to change hands if you're right or left-handed. Small locking nut. And just like the back side, take your drill or your other pair of pliers. And just push it down halfway. Like so. Now you're going to take your 2 more of your 12mm screws. Put your piece back on your drill. And now we're going to cap it. And those of you who have built the Scamp are probably, well aware that these are very similar, but you'll notice as you're putting it together, the pieces fit together a lot better. It's a lot less effort as you're trying to fight it. Everything I tried to redesign to be more user-friendly. I wanted it to give you the same feeling, same kind of power, same type of, ease of use, same type of size, or I guess not same type of size, but ease of use and power in a smaller form factor, which is why this one's about 2 inches shorter than the Scamp. And now we're going to take 2 more of the short pins, fit them into place right there. I'm going to use a pair of pliers, just like so. Just like so. And then I'm going to take my trigger release, which is hiding somewhere around here. There. Again, clean off any burrs that are hanging out from the print process. If you have a file and you want to, help the process along, the wearing process, giving this surface just a quick touch up like that will smooth it out pretty easily, and that'll help it more easily release the magazine. That's together, or release the trigger catch. Now we're going to take our front end just like so. Oops. We're just going to start fitting it together. There's a few different pieces. You know, you got to be careful about the barrel. You got to get those rods lined up. Just go slow. You don't have to force anything. It'll all fit. You just got to make sure it's all lined up properly with all the holes. If it's really still fighting you, I think what's happening here, I think there's a burr inside of one of these. So as you see, we haven't screwed down the top bar yet. And I'm just leaving it accessible so I can use it. Yeah, there's something in there. Just to use it to clean up the pieces as we go through if we need to. There we go. So all those are opened up now. Now it's just making sure those bottom ones line up and the barrel is lined up. So now I'm not sure what it is that's catching here. Oh. If you take out one of your, this is another trick that I learned doing the miscreant. Well, I've learned it doing all the builds, but it's in the miscreant video. Just pull out one of your little 2mm rods and drill it into the holes to open them up. Because these can fill up with burrs too. That one doesn't really need it, it's already open. So. And so that's why I just noticed it's catching. Now, if I was right, that should slide together pretty easily. As long as those holes are lined up. Oh, I didn't put this on. You guys are watching me just ride along the struggle bus. Go. Just like that. Now that you cleaned out all the burrs and all the holes, everything starts to fit together. Now you're going to take your non-locking threaded nuts, if I can find them, and you're going to do your testing with these ones. I don't know if you guys can tell my energy level has dipped a bit as I'm building this. It is quite hot outside and I am in my garage with all my printers running, so I am just getting absolutely roasted in here. I'm doing my best just to make sure that I don't forget anything. I might take a break from this video in a minute, even though I'm pretty close to the end. I'm just hanging in there. Get these all tightened up. You don't want to over tighten them. Just like hand tight, basically. They're going to lock into place, so you're just going to keep the blaster together. Like so. And then once those are on, you can test the prime. Some extra space, unlike in the Scamp. So that locks into place. And you're going to take one of these locking nuts, slide it into the back. Take this rod that we've been kind of not putting in all the way. We're going to use that. We're just going to fit it in back there. It's not quite locking in, so we're going to use the drill. first. Fit it into place. Put the locker on the back. Put the locker on the back. Just like that. Take one of your last non-locking nuts, twist over the front. Like so. Make sure everything fits properly. And really quickly before I completely put that last bar on, we're going to put the trigger spring on so we can test the trigger and the catch. Then you're going to take your last 8mm screw. This is the last short one you're going to have, if I can get it to stay on. And that is going to go through your spring into your trigger release through the bar. There's going to be a few holes that'll line up there. Just like that. Good little test. Now we can finish putting this together. I like to slide this piece back just because I don't want it getting in the way as I do this. Again, not too tight, just so that you can see it coming through all the way. Make sure all of your tips are pointed straight up towards the top, because that is the orientation that they will lie inside the catch or the tip of your front end. If I forget to take this out, I'll try my best to make sure that they're all out, the supports. But if I forget to take them out, just take a file or a knife or a screwdriver or whatever you have lying around that's kind of pointy. Doesn't matter. You're just trying to get the supports out of these holes. There we go, here's one. And you don't necessarily have to do it, but it does help. It helps a lot, actually, to not have to fight it. I think I said those were your last, that was your last 8mm screw, but I lied. You're going to have 3 more. And then you're going to carefully just drop those into place. Not over tightening them. And hopefully you'll have a better bit than I do, and it'll actually stay in when you press on it. Like so. Just like that. Your Rascal's ready to go. We're just gonna fire it off. All set.